Greetings friends, it's me, Wayman29. Welcome back to another video of Hell, a series that I've been doing. This is Hell 1.2, entitled Meet the Gods. We're going to go over some Sumerian, Babylonian, Assyrian, and Hittite deities. And all these are very complicated and they're meshed together. Grand Valley State University had a great chart of a small overview of some of the Mesopotamian deities, and we'll cover because these show the differences and likenesses of the gods, because they're used, and some of these stories were borrowed by other cultures in the area, and so all this literature is heaped together in a pile, and we're going to try to sort some of this out. So you can go back to this. I'll be posting this link to the site in the details section, so you'll be able to go back. And if you get confused at some of these, you can do your own research and see how things pan out. And I'm also going to be discussing some things and some groups of gods and places that are not on this list and come from myths from Mesopotamia, creation, the flood, Gilgamesh, and others by Stephanie Daly, who's an excellent writer on ancient Near Eastern literature, and also pictured ancient Near Eastern texts relating to the Old Testament. This is a pretty old book, but it's very extensive, and I don't know if you could get a hold of it, but I've been trying to find most of these texts online so people can kind of follow along. And what we need to think about is what other deities outside of Mesopotamia later filled these roles in other cultures. So as I'm going through this, you need to think about Romans, the Greeks, the Hebrews, the Canaanites, and we'll hit on some of those as we go down this list. So, because this is very important, because another rule in mythology, old gods never die. They're just replaced, which is very fascinating, and you'll see how this works. So the first god from Sumerian, we're going to burn through this, and we're going to talk as thoughts come into my mind, and so this isn't entirely structured, but we want some kind of theme. So to get to where we're going in the topic of the underworld, we have to know some of the gods. So first in our list is Abuzu, ABZU, Babylonian Apsu, which is the sweet waters under the earth and the abyss. So here we have fresh water. The Mayim in Hebrew, waters from waters, and the separation in Genesis chapter 1. An and Anu is the sky, firmament, father of the gods. So here in Hebrew literature, it would be the Rakia, or the firmament. Damazu, or Tamazu, shows up in Ezekiel, also, and it's the shepherd god of grain and deer. And I think the Greek god Pan would fall into this. Enki and controller of the sweet waters, fresh waters. I'm not really sure the function. He's a pretty big god. He may be sometimes aligned with Apsu in some of the literature, but here we have separations from, in Genesis 1, for example, waters from waters. Waters above, waters below. Then you have gods like Oceanus and Poseidon, who may fill the same function as just so we can see some kind of separation. Enlil, or Eli, Ellil, Lord of the Wind and Air. Erishtagal, we'll see her quite a bit, Queen of the Underworld. Persephone, Greek, can be put into here. It's an underworld goddess. Lady of the Vine, Geshtinana, I think that's how you pronounce that. Also think about Dionysus, Bacchus, and I believe this is the goddess who shows up when she's sitting in a vineyard, when Gilgamesh comes through looking for eternal life. Here's Gugalana, bull of heaven, Nergal, Erishkigal's husband. Now this is interesting because in the story of Gilgamesh, Enkidu and Gilgamesh, because they killed Aham, the bull of heaven is unleashed. These two are separate, meaning that the bull of heaven was slain by Enkidu, so you can't have something come out of the underworld and not return without replacing it with something. And you'll see in the descent of Ishtar with Tamazu the issue that happened there. So here, Erishkigal's first husband was Gilgalana, and Nergal is another hero who comes and ends up taking his place. So Anzu, or the Zoo bird, is the thunderbolt assimilated into Ninurta. Here, Jove could possibly fit in here, and Horus, out of Egyptian. Inanna and Ishtar, basically sometimes in literature they're sisters, or they're the same person. I'm sorry, they're not sisters. Same deities, same goddesses. They're the sister of Erishkigal, and both of those goddesses are the daughters of the moon god, or in some pieces of literature, I believe it's Enlil. So sometimes there's a dispute with that. Namtar, here's the god of fate and the death messenger. So I'll be looking into that. Tiamat, again, Oceanus, a primeval ocean mother. She ends up fighting with Marduk in the underworld, and she's seen as a sea serpent. So, who is associated in Hebrew with the Hebrew word is Timon. Here, quickly, Tan, dragon, whale. So this word is TNN in Hebrew. And we can see down here Tannin, which also comes from the Canaanite, as we may see when we get there. So she's pretty important. Sin and Nana, as we said, the moon god. Here's a lesser deity, Ninhursag, Mami. We see her show up in literature. Ninurta, the war, the thunder god, also characteristics of Baal, Yahweh. Jove answers by thunder. Shamash, Utu, Shamash, the sun, judge, lawgiver. Very important. Also, he can be connected with other deities, such as other lawgivers, meaning I think Osiris may fill this role at some point. Also, for Nergal, the husband of Erishkigal, who takes over the underworld from Erishkigal, you could put Osiris in his role also, and also in some stories Gilgamesh. Now think about heroes. These are heroes. So there's a god that's not mentioned on here who's very important, and we're gonna look at him. Is Erra. Erra is the deity of plagues, famine. So when in Job you see the Satan go before the divine council, or the Elohim, he puts all these plagues on Job. Erra would be the hero that does that. You see him bothering Marduk, and we're going to look at Ishum, who is kind of like the lawyer of the underworld who sticks up for people, in contrast to Erra. And he kind of like talks sense into Erra when he's always aching to go to war, or he's in his fits of fury. And we're gonna look at a great speech by Erra when we get into suffering and plagues and all that. And this could be what's going on in the first section of Job, the first part, because this deity does not care for who's just and who's unjust, who sinned and who didn't sin. He's just bent on wiping out everybody, which is pretty interesting. And so then you have the second part of Job, which is fairly long. The first part, you have the plagues and the curses and the boils and all the things. Then you get into the debate on just and unjust punishment. Then you get the response from the God Yahweh, and then Job gets everything back. But the first section of that and the last section of that are added in probably later to explain what's going on. Erra may be a part of that, who is can be also associated with Nergal, and also with, in some aspects, Gilgamesh. It's very complex. Shamash, as we said, sun god Ra would fill this role also. There's some great hymns to Shamash, but that's another topic. Here is a hero that's pretty interesting. This Tarhasus is like the biblical Noah. He's kind of a crafty god. The gods talk to him. They're friends. In Babylon, he's known as Utnapishtim. And we'll see him relaxing in another world where Gilgamesh goes to the kind of like Garden of Eden place, and to ask him how he gained eternal life, because he's so distraught at the death of Enkidu. And these are the names for, just like in the Hebrew text, the flood hero. So, now moving on to some other things. We have groups of gods in the underworld. The Anunnaki are gods. Gilgamesh is also there. But then we have the Agigi. Now, the Agigi don't reside in the underworld. These are the gods who end up doing chores for the gods, who don't want to do, for example, in the creation story, they create the Agigi. They're also associated with sorts of demons sometimes, but the Anunnaki and the Agigi, the Anunnakis, I think they're judges in the underworld. The Agigi are supporters of heaven. So that's the difference. So the river of the underworld is called Hubar, and the river ordeal used to settle disputes. The Humbaba, he's the guardian of the pine forest, fire-breathing servant of the god of war. The Agigi, here it is, the definition out of Stephanie Daly's book, is the great gods of the younger generation. These are sky gods headed by Eli, often paired with the Anunnaki, which is very important. These can be compared to the Elohim from the Hebrew text. Let's see if there's any that we missed, and maybe we can move on and actually get into some literature on the underworld. I think that's pretty much all we need. If we run into anything else, we'll see. Feel free to go back through some of this, look at some of these deities. It'll be posted in the details section. And I apologize in the last video for making us all look at a brick wall for 10 minutes. But take care, friends, and come back. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe. And remember, if everybody's thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking.